I gotta admit, when I got the third-party Turtle Wagon from Underground Arsenal a year and a half ago, I didn't think that it could even compete to the official releases that NECA and eventually Super 7 would do. But now that I have the NECA Turtle Wagon in hand, the competition is a lot closer than I ever thought it would be. A unique thing happened in toy collecting about a year and a half ago when 3 toy makers decided to take a stab at making a larger scale TMNT party wagon. You had 2 major turtle players with NECA making a toon style version of the turtle van, and then you had Super 7, which made a more Playmates inspired version of the van. They both had pretty hefty price tags, with that Super 7 one being $450 and then the NECA one coming in at $250. And then essentially out of nowhere, a third-party toy maker called Underground Arsenal unveiled their own version of the Turtle Party Wagon. Now, say what you will about third-party unlicensed toys, but at least on the Transformers side of things, they've made some really impressive robots. And in the videos that they shared for this party wagon, it actually looked pretty darn good. So at the time, it became a Underground Arsenal versus NECA versus Super 7 debate. Which one would be better? Now, we got the Underground Arsenal one first, just a few months after it was unveiled in May of 2022. And now about a year and a half later, NECA's van is starting to arrive on collectors' doorsteps. Now, I forgot to order within the buy-in window for the NECA van, so a big thanks to patron and member of the GDL community, Dan Crispex, for letting me borrow his turtle van for this review. Now, we won't truly know until we have the Super 7 one in hand, but now that we have the NECA one, I thought it would be fair to do a side-by-side comparison of the two to see which one would be better. So to help me decide that, I used the same format that I created for the Motu Classics versus Motu Masterverse video series. And you know, maybe it's not 100% perfect, that was made for figures versus vehicles, but I think a lot of the same rules still apply. So the factors that I'm accounting for here are cost, the box, the sculpt, paint applications, articulation, in this case for all the doors and stuff like that, accessories, and the final factor, which to me is honestly the most important, the fun factor. And starting with cost, the UA and NECA Turtle Van were about the same price. The NECA van being $250. The Underground Arsenal originally was $275, and they dropped it to like $259, and eventually it was like $230, $225. But you know, they're ballpark about the same price. But which one wins out? Since they were about the same price, this one is a little bit difficult, but I think I'm gonna give the score to the Underground Arsenal van. It came in a little bit cheaper by the time most people got it, under $250. And on the secondary market, you can get these ones for around $300 to $350, while this NECA Turtle van is about $450. It's really close, but I'm giving a slight edge to the Underground Arsenal van. All right, next up is the box category, and to be completely honest, NECA runs away with this one. The Underground Arsenal van was unlicensed, so there was no branding to have on the box. It was just a simple shipper box with some styrofoam to keep it safe as it was delivered to you. The NECA one has an incredible box with some awesome artwork, tons of great pictures for this set. It blows it out of the water. They could have, you know, phoned it in, but I think they did a really great job with the artwork on the front. It has a great scene. I don't think most people will display it in box, but I think if you did, I think it's a really nice looking box. Next up is Sculpt, and I think this one is a really difficult one to place, mainly because the Turtle Van in the cartoon series morphed and changed frame by frame, where, you know, sometimes it would look a little bit boxier, sometimes it would look a little bit more curvier, sometimes it would look way big, sometimes it would be super small, and it's a really difficult needle to thread if you're trying to make a ultimate version of the Turtle Van. That being said, the renders as well as the NECA van that we have in hand just feels way too boxy to me. Now, I know there's frames in the cartoon that would show it looking boxy like this, but I don't know, just in my head, maybe it's a bit of an influence from the Playmates van, but also in the series, you can see it. It had more of a curve to the front of it, and it wasn't so much of a box. I think another factor in the sculpt that makes it seem even more boxy is the size. It's been scaled down, even to what we saw in the cartoon series. I get why they did that. Honestly, if you want to be able to fit this in a display with a bunch of Toon Turtles, you probably want it a little bit smaller, but for me, I think it just makes it look even boxier. So while I think the sculpting that they did is fairly accurate to the show, I mean, I've watched a few different episodes with the Turtle Van in it, and I think they captured, you know, all the details fairly accurate to the television series. I think the scale, making it so much smaller, just makes it look way too boxy. And even though the sculpting on the Underground Arsenal van maybe isn't as accurate, I think the overall curvature to the front, as well as the larger scale of it, I don't know, captures the spirit of the cartoon version of the Turtle van better. And I think for that, I gotta give the win, and it's a slight, edge to the Underground Arsenal one for me. Next up is the paint, and honestly, I thought the NECA one would have ran away to win this category, and I think overall it's still significantly better than the Underground Arsenal. I mean, all of the detail that you have in the shell pattern on the top, as well as the teeth, the front logo, all the stuff on the inside of the van, all of those details, I think look really good, but I think they still could have done more. A lot of people did, lining along the Underground Arsenal van, and it made it really pop. And I would have thought NECA would have done a bit more of that on their own Turtle van. But to be honest, in a lot of the yellow parts of the van, it just looks a little plain. And that is a bit of a bummer. Again, it is better than the Underground Arsenal van, so I am going to give the win on paint to the NECA van, but I think it could have been a lot better. All right, next up is articulation. I know vehicles don't really have articulation, but I'm still going to use it for how the parts move compared to the other van. And I gotta say, NECA's engineering on the moving parts is okay. The cannon is a little stiff. It does have a ratchet, but it doesn't have the same range of motion as the Underground Arsenal one. The doors open up okay, but they do feel a little bit flimsy and a little bit floppy, which is a little bit concerning, how well that can stand to the test of time. Now, I do realize why they had to do it, so they could hide the hinge. The hinge is exposed on the Underground Arsenal one, but it does make me worried about its long-term stability. The same is true with the side doors. They just feel a little bit floppy and not very secure. The top doors, the hinge doesn't even really feel like a hinge. I feel like it just pop off at any given moment. And the range of motion on the back doors is kind of clunky as well. Comparing that to the Underground Arsenal van, I feel like the cannons, while they maybe aren't as show accurate, feature better articulation. They are telescoping, which is really nice. The doors aren't as floppy because of the stronger hinge that they made there. I mean, also the fact that the laser cannon can open and close attached to the door, I think is a great thing. And the back doors, even while they're not as accurate, open all the way and are really nice and solid. And the top doors are a little floppy, but they do have, a secure hinge locking them into place. So while the Underground Arsenal isn't perfect as far as all of the moving parts are concerned, I do think overall it is better than the NECA van. Up next is accessories, and I'll probably give it to the NECA one. It has far more accessories, it has more interchangeability as well, even though the fact that you have to attach the laser cannon to the door is a bit of a bummer. I feel like we have a lot more details that are accurate to the show. So the NECA van features lights on the front headlights as well as the tail lights. I will say it is a little bit more difficult to get to the switches in the center of the vehicle versus the orientation of the UA van is much smoother right here in the front. You can easily reach it even if it's sitting down on a table, but there are no lights that feature on the back of the van. They're just dummy tail lights. So the Underground Arsenal van isn't a slouch in the accessories category, but I think the NECA one gives us more accessories, more accuracy, and more features. So if you're playing along at home, we are tied. We have 3 in the win column for the Underground Arsenal and 3 in the win column for the NECA, and that leaves it to the last category, the fun category, which I will readily admit is really just my opinion. Which one do I think is more fun? And it's honestly, it's really, really close. I could even say it's a toss-up. But if I had to pick between the two at this moment, and again, we don't have the Super 7 Turtle van yet, I would give the slight edge to the Underground Arsenal van, which may be controversial. You can let me know down in the comments below. But I just like the fact that all of the different functions of the UA van just lead to a more fun vehicle to display and to play with. The fact that it's just a larger van when comparing it to the NECA version. It's not absurdly large, but you have far more room in the front of the vehicle to have seated figures. You can have 3 turtles sit on that front bench versus only 2 of the NECA version. You have a lot more space on the back half of the van to display figures. And just the overall build, while it's not perfect, it's a more enjoyable experience to get around the van. It's easy to remove the roof, to take some inside shots if you're doing toy photography, or if you just want to play inside of the van and that's how you want to display it. The NECA one, you can't take off all of those accessories, and putting the roof back on is a tedious and laborious process where I'm worried I'm going to break the thing. I don't feel that way with the Underground Arsenal van. But that's not to say the Underground Arsenal van is perfect. It is lacking in paint applications, it's lacking in accuracy, but I think the NECA van just isn't giving me what I want out of a toon-style turtle van, where I want playability, functionality, and to really allow me the most display options. And because of the size, you can actually play with other turtle figures. You can put Super 7 turtles in this. You can put NECA movie turtles into this. It really is adaptable to any of the collector style lines for the TMNT property, versus the NECA one really probably will only play with the Toon style, maybe the Mirage style figures that NECA's released so far. So because of that, I'm gonna give the fun category to Underground Arsenal, and that gives 4 tallies for Underground Arsenal versus NECA, which is kind of crazy. I would have never have thought when these first 3 were announced that I would actually pick the Underground Arsenal slightly over the NECA van, but that's where we are now. The last piece of this puzzle is the Super 7 turtle van. I have one on order, so definitely stay tuned to the channel. Hit the subscribe button and that bell so you don't miss it, and let me know what you think. Do you have both vans? Do you think I'm wrong, or do you think I'm right? Let me know down in the comment section below. We'll have a discussion about it. If you want to go back in time, definitely check out the live stream that Mad Hatter, John, and I did back in April of 2022 when these first 3 were announced. We didn't have them in hand yet. I think it'll be a fun watch now that we're actually getting all of these vans. And until next time, hasta luego and goodbye.